All right, everybody, we are live and welcome to another edition of Elevate Your Grind brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. As always, I'm still your host, Todd Rosales. I haven't gone anywhere and Robert has yet to replace me. We are on episode number 4 of our 4 live shows this week. Very exciting. Funny enough, me and today's guests have a number of friends in common. We have a number of historical events in common, just locations in common and everything else. And I'm very shocked that we have not crossed each other's path yet. So I'm extremely excited to talk to him about so much. And I've watched a lot of talks that he's done already. He's extremely knowledgeable. So I can keep up with him. Next week, I think we're going to do 4 shows again. I don't know what I keep signing myself up for, but yeah, nope. Oh, we got 3 shows next week. So next week we have Thomas Meredith from Blaze Staffing, Derek Duchenne from Exactus Hemp, and then a good friend of mine, Halston Puchek from the Hoban Law Group. She does not do too many interviews because Bob Hoban tends to steal all the thunders, but Halston has been an amazing friend of mine. She's been incredibly helpful in my career in cannabis, and I'm very, very excited that she's going to sit down with us next week. It's not one that you're going to want to miss. In regards to recorded episodes, guys, we had 2 awesome ones that we put on the YouTube page today. Again, go to YouTube, search for Elevate Your Grind. We have our conversation with Vladimir Bautista from Happy Monkey. If you guys want to understand what's going on in New York in regards to medical cannabis and when adult use is going to come down the pike, that was a great conversation. We can learn all things that Vlad has to say. Man is so busy, he actually took the interview from his car. So really appreciate Vlad spending the time with us. And then one of my personal favorite interviews so far, Eben Britton, who is the co-host of Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson, host of his own podcast, The Ebb and Flow, and also a co-founder of Athletes for Care. He tells us about his story, his experience with opiates, and realistically how cannabis has helped change his life and really turn him around. If you guys don't follow Eben on social media, as I said in the interview, I was not a fan of his at first, and the more and more I saw him, the more he grew on me, and now he is one of my favorite people to follow on social media. So you definitely want to check that out. And then what do we have going on this week? This week or next week? Next week, we have our Diversity in Cannabis panel. So if you guys want to check that out, that is being anchored by Roz McCarthy, but for minorities for medical marijuana. I messed up yesterday and said minorities for marijuana. I'm sure they're for both, but for right now, it's minorities for medical marijuana. So we're going to have Roz McCarthy on that panel being the anchor, and she's going to join us Monday at 6 p.m. live right here on facebook.com/Cannabusiness Group. We're going to sit down with her and really kind of give you a preview into the panel. Before we get started, our sponsors. This podcast was brought to you by DeRay Ross & Company. DeRay Ross & Company, folks, how many times do I have to go through it with you? We all have that friend. They've got great experiences, but they can't tell a story. It doesn't matter what your story is or how great it is. If you're telling it in a vacuum or if you can't tell it the right way, nobody's going to listen and nobody's going to care, frankly. If you guys want to see the power of a company like DeRay Ross & Co. can bring to your organization, just go check out the media kit for today's guest, and you will see all the great exposures that they got, not because DeRay is bribing people into writing about them, because they have an amazing story and all she's doing is knocking on the right doors. And I don't want to discount what DeRay's doing, but she's able to knock on the right doors and make sure that these guys can tell their story and that it's getting out to the right people. Listen, she's not going to sit back and wait for the news to happen. Her and her team of dynamos, they go ahead and they make news happen. I've got a lot of friends in that organization. DeRay has been a great friend to us, and she also sits on our Broward board. Go check them out. Check out their new landing page at cannabismarketingpr.com. That's cannabismarketingpr.com. Finally, my guest today has been everywhere. He's been in the Sun Sentinel. He's done a TED Talk or a TEDx talk right here in Boca. He's been on the Cheddar News segment. And like most of our guests, he decided to slum it here today on Elevate Your Grind. I'm extremely excited to talk to him and learn more everything that they're doing. Please welcome the Director of Business Development from Veritas Farms, Derek Thomas. Derek, man, thanks for joining us.
Todd, thank you so much, man. What an introduction. I really hope I can live up to that. But ultimately, as you said, we've almost crossed paths many times. So what a better way to finally cross paths now?
Well, I'm sure, in your time, and not to reveal too much because it's on your LinkedIn, so I feel okay talking about it. When you were at Baja Beach Club, I'm sure you guys have thrown me out at least once or twice. So if anything, that's definitely where we cross paths. But, both of us went to Florida State. We got great educations there. And then just following your career, man, you've done a lot of amazing things, and then it brought you into cannabis, right? So we can back up and go all the way back to the beginning and the fun times at Florida State when we were probably, maybe more on the recreational side of things. But, what brought you into the cannabis world? Because, and I say this, and I'm definitely a broken record. Carson Humiston from Vanks came on the show and she said that, and I keep giving her credit for this, we're not bankers. Everybody who's here, they're not chasing a paycheck. They're here because they're passionate and they want to be here. And that is a theme that has rung true from every guest that I've had on the show. So what's your story and why are you working in the cannabis space? What brought you to Veritas?
Yeah. Well, as you said, kind of cut my teeth in hospitality. So that started at Baja's, which I think you're right. That was probably much more on the recreational side back in those days. So, in graduating from Florida State, I moved down to Miami and stayed in the hospitality scene, kind of rose through the ranks, cut my teeth. And also, the other side of me, I guess, was always still very interested, not just in recreational marijuana, not just in the hemp plant, but in sustainability and alternative health and wellness and all those types of, things that were just coming to fruition, in the early 2000s. So that was really how I gravitated into the space. I was coming up on 30 years old, and I was, at that time, I was the director of nightlife of the Thompson Hotel on Miami Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Great job. Very, very exciting property. Really, really just a fun time. But it just wasn't for me. Ultimately, the mission every night, our philosophies, our goals, just what we were doing as a business, it just wasn't resonating for me anymore. So around that same time, and I tell this in my TED Talk a little bit, I was actually arrested on Miami Beach for possession of marijuana. And we're talking about something, a joint, a little bit of shake that's left in the bag, and
Mm-hmm.
it was an eye opener for me. I had never really had an encounter with law enforcement like that before. And I really started transitioning from just a recreational kind of passive user to an advocate, especially once I started learning about all the other facets of the hemp plant, the history of the hemp plant, and then the future of the hemp plant. And I literally just became enthralled, and it was an obsession. And like any responsible, intelligent late 20-year-old, I quit my job, had no idea what I was going to do, and I moved out to LA. And that was my entrance into cannabis. And for a couple of years, it was consulting here and there. I worked with some really, really cool startup brands in the space. And what's funny to me is that I never actually have worked on the marijuana side, on the MJ side. I've always worked on the hemp side. So I was in textiles, bioplastics, the agriculture side. And of course now with Veritas Farms, I've been with Veritas for 3 years. And obviously we focus on full spectrum hemp oil. So that's, I guess that's like the 50,000 foot view of kind of how I got here.
Well, I think it's funny, right? You mentioned that you've never worked on the marijuana side of things, and I learned that distinction watching your TED Talk, that the government has two silos: it's hemp and it's marijuana, right? Even though it's the same plant family and the same kind of genus as well. I think it's interesting that the recreational or adult use side of the cannabis plant is what brings a lot of us into this industry. And it's then either being in the industry or being aware of the industry that opens your eyes to the health and wellness side of it. And trust me, we will get to the industrial hemp thing because that is something I am extremely interested in. And that's why I really enjoyed your TED Talk. But I think it's interesting that folks like you and me, we start out as recreational users. We start out and we don't realize that even though you're using it recreationally, it's kind of your first foray into how it can be a wellness or how it can be a medical benefit to you. And then you start educating yourself, okay, what are the different strains? What are the different terpenes? How does this affect me? How does that affect me? Leading you all the way to a company like Veritas that has non-psychoactive CBD products in so many different ways, shapes, and forms that you can truly use it as a wellness product. I mean, I take CBD every day now, every morning, almost like a vitamin. So, do you see a lot of people coming into the industry that way, that we're actually taking people that kind of start with the recreational side and then through education, they're like, wow, there are so many other ways that I can use this. You know what? I may not even want to use it recreationally anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, the past decade when cannabis, marijuana, hemp, when it was all really coming to fruition, that's where you really had a lot of the old school marijuana guys, everyone from the growers, to just kind of the recreational weekend users. And that is the journey. Like you said, you start learning about some different strains, some different terpenes, how they affect you. And then you kind of take this expansive step forward into all the other facets of the hemp plant. Now I would say that's not so much the story. Now, because it's a legitimate industry, because there is, institutional dollars, you have a lot of really, really smart professionals coming into the space. And I think you might even see a little bit of a reversal where now they're learning about the plant, they're learning about all these health benefits, and maybe they're willing to try marijuana. So I still think a lot of people come into the space from their, adolescent experiences with marijuana, but it's definitely, the dynamic has changed a little bit now that the space is much more legitimized.
Okay. You had talked in your TED Talk, and I'm going to reference it a lot because it really 13 minutes of just a ton of great information. And anybody who hasn't seen it yet, I highly recommend that you go check it out. And not just because you're on the show, but because I really did enjoy it. So, when the CBD market first started blowing up, I was a little upset about it. And not because I missed out on investments or anything else like that. That's another story for another time. But it got so big that I think the messaging and really the mission of the industry got lost, because now all of a sudden I can go to the local gas station and get CBD, but it was a bullshit product. It wasn't something that was quality. And there was a lot of people that were just digital marketers that were white labeling CBD. I remember going down to the Miami Hemp and CBD Expo, and literally there were probably 300 different CBD companies that probably all got their same supply from about 5 different people. But there were companies that stood their ground and really did things the right way that stood out to me. Veritas being one, Green Roads being one, Charlotte's Web, obviously, some of the bigger brands there that you're like, no, we have a mission. It's going to be clean. It's going to be organic. It's going to be lab tested and everything else. That I almost feared that the bad players were going to make it hard for you. How do you guys stand out in a sea of so much of the same as a premium product and as something that is trusted?
Yeah, you identified such a pervasive challenge within the industry. It's the bath bombs, it's the CBD infused pizza and ice cream and those type of products where it's not a novelty. As the industry unfolded, you had a lot of opportunistic actors who they saw the green rush. They had some online marketing skills, or they had a connection to manufacture some type of unique product. And in a way it did, I would say, undermine what legitimate companies like Veritas, like Charlotte's Web, like Green Roads were trying to do. And, for a long time, it was a really big challenge because you had so many consumers who had come across such different and conflicting types of information. And ultimately, how do you know who to trust when there's no federal or state regulations really to speak of, when there isn't that Apple, that Tesla out in the market space yet? How do you know where to go? And when you see it added into products like bath bombs and pizza and ice cream, it
Pillows.
loses.
I saw CBD pillows.
I saw the CBD pillow too. What was that? I saw a CBD bra. I'm not kidding. I mean, and I think that causes a lot of head scratching. When we really want to talk about the science, the endocannabinoid system, all the different cannabinoids and terpenes and functions within the body, how do you manage those two different types of stories being told about the same type of product? So it created a lot of confusion. But I give a lot of credit to companies like Veritas Farms, like Charlotte's Web, like Green Roads, because like you said, we stuck to our guns. We all, I can't say that the messaging is all the same, but it's all very similar. Full spectrum hemp oil, cannabinoids, the endocannabinoid system, and not making these outlandish claims or making it into these wonky, ridiculous products. So I think that, over time, that stuff will continue to get weeded out, no pun intended. And then, hopefully within, after we get some federal regulations and some more bad actors are kind of pushed out, we'll have a really beautiful, prominent industry that is true to its roots.
Yeah, and I hope that that continues to happen because the companies like you and Green Roads, and we can keep mentioning them by name, but we'll stick with Veritas for now. You guys are putting out quality products and you're putting out good products, right? You don't have pizza or pillows or anything else on your website. So I want to, I hope that when people actually go and they go, okay, I'm going to try this cannabis stuff. I'm going to start with CBD, that they do their research and find the right companies and they get the right first experience with it, right? You do a very good job, and I'll let you go into it because I'll probably butcher it, talking about how important the hemp plant has been to the human race throughout our history, right? And it's realistically only this 100-ish year gap where it was demonized to the level of things as meth and more so
Yeah.
than heroin or cocaine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that when we actually look at the people using it, it's helping them. And then when we look beyond how they're using it, just within their bodies, you go into talking about the things that were made out of hemp, whether it be clothes or automotive fenders
Mm-hmm.
or plastics or all this other stuff. Tell us a little bit about that, right? Just the history between the human beings and hemp and how we got to this prohibition.
Yeah, what a story it is. I mean, and the more you zoom in on different facets of it, the more you can just get lost in it because the history is so extensive and it runs so deep with humanity. It's such, just like rice or corn or wheat or soy, hemp is ingrained in humanity. It naturally grows in parts of Asia. So that's really, back in antiquity, when you're talking about Mesopotamia, you're talking about Egypt and Babylon, hemp was there, and hemp was being grown. It was one of our first agriculturalized crops. Now, back then, it was grown for things like rope and clothing and seeds for food a little bit. But we've literally been engaging with this crop on an agricultural level for thousands of years. And that's not even to say what type of experiences hunter-gatherers and those that prehistory had with the plant. Because you can assume that they were foraging it as well. But that's neither here nor there. So then, through antiquity, we just became closer to the plant. And as it spread around the world, it made it over to the colonies in Virginia. A lot of people don't even realize that the British Crown required colonialists to grow hemp. I mean, it was the hemp of the colonies. It was the first hemp. It was the first crop of the United States. So it's not even ingrained throughout world history. It's ingrained in American history. And it started in the colonies and then it never stopped. A lot of people don't realize that the Appalachians, North Carolina, Kentucky, South Carolina, they grew some of the best hemp in the world. And the hemp that came from that region was known all over the world for being quality, because of the soil and because of the herd and the stalk and the fiber. And then we enter this period where hemp becomes competitive. So we're growing other crops, right? We're growing cotton and we're growing paper. And around the turn of the century, the 1900s, the hemp decorticator was invented. And all of a sudden, hemp became an incredibly competitive crop with other crops like cotton, like paper, and even the synthetic fiber industry, which was emerging out of Europe. And you essentially have a bunch of self-interested parties come together, and through a number of different means, and it took them a couple decades, but through the use of the federal government and through the use of propaganda, they were able to effectively outlaw hemp. And what's fascinating about this story is marijuana was in so many consumer products. It was pervasive in consumer products. You could get it over the counter at pharmacies around the turn of the century. There was no negative connotation with marijuana, but they needed to bastardize hemp. And because they're so closely related, they look the same. They essentially are the same plant, just a couple of different genetics, maybe a different male, female type of thing. It was hemp that was the target, not marijuana. But they used marijuana to bastardize hemp. So that created a century of just absolute consumer confusion. When you talk to some of these politicians now, the perception that they have of cannabis, it's lingering from that stigma. And that's really what the industry needs to work to clear up, both from the hemp side and the marijuana side.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. I mean, we look at that, and I talk about this a lot. When we look at the prohibition of alcohol, the only thing the prohibition of alcohol did was increased organized crime. And
Hmm.
it almost created, I think it did create organized crime, right? We
Hmm.
had
Yeah.
all these different gangs and everything else that were just, doing crime here and there. And then with alcohol, they had something to get behind, and it created the mafia and organized crime as we know it today. And
Yeah.
all the prohibition of things like cannabis is doing is creating drug cartels that,
Yes.
because if
Yeah.
people want it, they're going to do it. So, we get, and you allude to this in your TED talk, 2018 Farm Bill makes it legal for people to start growing hemp for purposes. I know that CBD, I think it's what, 0.3%, as long as it's below
0.3%.
0.3% THC, is now legal. We have this great CBD industry, and it's starting to be accepted a little bit, not a little bit, a lot wider within the uh, general audience of the country. It's not the right term to use, but you guys know what I'm saying. I think we're definitely making steps in the right direction. And I forget who I stole it from. It might have been DeRay, but it's definitely someone. No, Cynthia Solarizada. She was saying that it was a PR campaign, Reefer Madness, that
Yes.
started the prohibition and started this, and that it's going to take a PR campaign, i.e., people like you going out there and educating the public to fight that. So, do you believe that? Obviously, it's great to get PR for Veritas, but do you believe that being in these publications and being on these shows, especially this one, and educating people is really one of the most important facets of your job?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super passionate about education and transparency, and so is Veritas Farms. And we spend a lot of our resources on education, because how can you be a customer of ours if you have a completely skewed perception of what it is that we do? So we spend a lot of resources on education. It's very important. And I think that when a consumer let's just talk about maybe a 45-year-old soccer mom who, she grew up in the Midwest, and she has these understanding and perceptions of cannabis. And then she goes to her favorite publication, it's Glamour, or it's Allure, or it's Forbes, or whatever it is. And she starts reading about cannabis, but it's being talked in a way that fish oil is being talked about, or it's being talked about in a way that, other natural wellness products are being talked about. And I think that is such a perception shifting type of engagement, because all of a sudden, you have that expansion of opportunity about what the plant can do. Oh, I thought that was what college kids use to unwind, or to get the munchies, or whatever.
Yeah.
But now you're telling me that it can help me with my stress or anxiety, and that I won't get high off of it. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think that's really critical. And I think that you've seen the success of the CBD industry. Uh, uh, it owes a lot of its success to that type of exposure.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you guys were featured alongside an article talking about Kim Kardashian's CBD themed baby shower or
Yeah.
whatever it was. And I mean, I never thought in my lifetime, I mean, the fact that we can go into a store and buy medical marijuana or recreational, depending on where you are, and that, we're going to see CBD and other things in some of the biggest pop magazines in the country, absolutely blows my mind. And I commend you guys for being part of that campaign and being part of that PR. And we can get into all the great things that you guys have accomplished. But the one thing I want to touch on that I really like about you, and I think it's why Veritas has been able to be as successful as you have, is vertical integration, right? So on this show, anybody who watches it knows that I complain about vertical integration in the state of Florida when it comes to our medical marijuana program. The only reason that I do that, folks, and don't hate me, is because it keeps the barrier for entry for people who want to get into the medical marijuana space very, very high. It's a 10-figure investment at minimum, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you look at CBD, there are a lot of people who can get into this space for a lower barrier to entry, a much more affordable way. You can get entrepreneurs, you can get innovators, people that don't have deep pockets, people that aren't good at raising capital. They can get started, they can build their brand, they build their reputation, and work towards vertical integration. Vertical
Yes.
integration is a good thing because companies like Veritas can control their supply chain. So on that note, and I know the answer, so I'm not going to even ask you, is this why How important is it for you guys to be vertically integrated so you know exactly what's going on within your organization?
Yeah, being vertically integrated has made all the difference for us. A big part of it is what you're talking about, is that so that we have that complete transparency in our supply chain, so that we can control our destiny, so that we can not only offer that to the consumer, but so that we can experiment, we can do research and development. You know, and it doesn't stop there. The trust that it helps us build with consumers, with retailers. You know, Veritas Farms is lucky to be featured in almost 10,000 retail doors. Some of the biggest chain retailers in the country trust Veritas Farms: Kroger, Publix, CVS, Rite Aid. And that's a big part of that is because our vertically integrated model, because we can show such a consistent and transparent supply chain. We test at multiple levels of production. We're tested in the field by the Colorado Department of Agriculture. Then, we test when we extract the oil. Then when we formulate into a bulk product, we test. And then when we make the final commercialized good, we test one more time. And all of those are by third-party ISO certified labs. And we're not just doing terpene and cannabinoid profiles. We're testing for pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, heavy metals, biocontaminants, residual solvents. And then we take those tests and we put them right on the website. And it's challenging to be able to do that if you don't control the entire vertical. So that was a huge part of our success. But it also, as I said, it allows us that level of trust, not just with the retailers. Up until COVID, we actually gave public tours of the farm, not to substantiate what we were doing, but to educate and to share. So, without the farm, that would not be a part of our story, and that is our story. So, it's a huge part of what we do. And I also just want to share what a magical place it is. It
Sure.
sits at the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, super quintessential. It's literally where the Rocky Mountains meet the Colorado Plains. We got a bright red barn, beautiful green plants. I mean, it is like, Bob Ross would be out there painting a picture of it. That's how, that's what it looks like out there. It's really cool.
I feel like somebody was painting that picture above your shoulder and just staring at it. And then just, that's how they came up with that. But no, I agree. I mean, we talked to Elizabeth Conway from Surterra yesterday, and it was one of the things I mentioned. If you ever get the opportunity to go to a grow, whether it's cannabis or hemp, it really is an experience, because it's unlike a lot of things that you've seen before. It's unlike a brewery tour or a wine tour. And the people that you're going to meet along the way are just extremely passionate about what they do. I mean, especially the farmers that are growing it. A lot of them risk a lot to be able to grow it and understand how to grow it. So, it's something that's incredible. And I think it's something that everybody should take advantage of when they're able to. One of the other benefits of vertical integration, I think, and I read that you guys are using some pretty incredible technology, is not only do you get to control the supply and understand it every step of the way, but you also get to look at adding efficiencies amongst that supply chain to get product to market faster and so many other benefits. What are some of the techniques or technologies that you guys are using along your supply chain that you've developed because you're vertically integrated?
Yeah, this is one of the most exciting things that I like to talk about. So we have this, he's kind of a wizard out at the farm. His name is Spencer Fuller, and he's our vice president of agriculture. And, we've done so many interesting things at the farm over the past year that Spencer's kind of spearheaded, and really unique things that you probably might not expect. So for example, we recently started allowing herd grazing animals to come onto the farm and graze. And
Wow.
why would we do that? Well, they eat the weeds. They also move around the soil. And then they obviously also defecate, which is a great natural fertilizer. So we allow herd grazing animals. We do what's called integrated pest management. So instead of using, Roundup and glyphosate and all these other weird Monsanto products, we actually use ladybugs, chickens, and spice bombs. And we actually have a chicken coop at the farm. We have this crazy rooster. His name is Richard. And it's those types of initiatives where you would come and you would say, wow, like this is really unique. We grow rotational vegetables in with our hemp. So we'll grow cucumbers and some fruits, and we'll grow pumpkins. And then we give it away to local food banks. And again, it improves our biodynamic soil. It helps with erosion. And it also allows us to not import these weird fertilizer products and things like that. So that's the first type of stuff that I like to share is going back to nature in order to boost your productivity. There's nothing wrong with utilizing nature where and when you can, and we absolutely love to. On the science side, we have some really exciting things going on too. We recently teased a new technology that we're starting to experiment with, which is actually a water-based extraction. So we're hoping that if we can nail that with the partners that we're talking to, that would completely eliminate using any solvents in our supply chain, which, as you can imagine, would be not only a big boost to our bottom line, but just make us so much more efficient and quote unquote safer in our processing. There's always really exciting things going on at the farm, and not to mention new product development. We've got some really, really cool products coming down the line. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to yet, but I will go ahead and just tease the word sleep tincture. And I've actually been trying it here. Yeah, I've been trying it here at home the past week, and it's phenomenal. We're always looking to improve. If we can do it naturally and sustainably, that's our go-to. But we also love science and embrace science. So we kind of have both things going on at the farm.
Yeah, it's funny. When I asked you what technologies you're using to enhance the supply chain, I expected you to say this piece of technology, this piece of equipment, and everything else. I did not expect you to say, no, we're going low tech and we're just bringing nature back into it, dude. That is absolutely incredible. And the sleep tincture is, I think, something that's 100% needed, because I'll be 100. I mean, I can't say 100% too many times, but needing to sleep is really what got me hooked on cannabis in the first place, right? I remember the nights that I'd go over to a buddy's house and use it recreationally, or the nights that I was able to sleep like a baby, and the other nights I'd be up and restless. So, being able to give people that same experience without the psychoactive effect is incredibly important. So I think that's going to be not that you guys need me to tell you, but I think that's going to be a great product for you guys, and I'm really looking forward to that coming out. So I want to back up a little bit. You had talked about the people who trust you, right? And the brand that you've done. You guys are in CVS, Winn-Dixie, Rite Aid, Kroger, and then Bi-Mart, who I don't know, but I'm going to assume they're just as big as the rest of them to be in that vein. I don't know if that was, you're the director of business development, so this falls under your purview, but what were those conversations like for the first time when you're sitting with these massive retailers like CVS that's in so many states and all over the place and so well known that they probably had the pick of the litter, like any cannabis company that they wanted to, or any CBD company that they wanted to pluck and say, you're going to be in our stores, would jump at the opportunity. How did you guys become the ones that they picked?
Yeah. It was many, many months in the making. It definitely is not a one call sale, nor a 2 or 3 call sale. We started building those relationships very early on. A big part of it was the substantiation and the trust that we were able to build through our vertically integrated model. But that was just one part of it. Some other facets that were super critical were the professionalism that we brought. We were in this space when it was still emerging, and you had a lot of I would call them, the garage cannabis guys who were also trying to make their way in the space. And listen, there's a place for everybody here. However, you definitely need to bring the level of professionalism that CVS expects in order to do business with them. So we were on top of that, and I think that we did that really well. And I think that also added to the trust that we were able to build. And then, the other side of it is, of course, just general business operations. You have to show that you can supply the inventory. You have to show that you have a strong understanding of SKU management, of lot numbers and manufacturing processes. And if you're not GMP certified because it wasn't possible to get it at the time, well, then you at least needed to have a robust SOP system for your good manufacturing practices. And we were able to show all of that. We were able to show how we were going to fulfill, how we were going to ship to all of their DCs around the country. And fortunately, we had a lot of smart people on the team. Our chief operating officer, our other vice president of channel development, we're all CPG guys. So I think coming in and being able to speak the language and just adapting it to CBD and hemp was something that was super critical for us too.
It's an incredible journey, man. I mean, those are some of the biggest names in retail around the country, and to be in there is absolutely incredible. it amazes me. It amazes me that we can go into some of these stores and see CBD on the shelf and it be widely accepted. And I'm happy that you guys did that. So, it's funny. You guys have spent a lot of time getting into retail, and it's a great strategy. And obviously, you have your online presence. Nobody saw the pandemic coming. And now all of a sudden, we're in a place where we're not going into retail, but we're also all in a situation where we can probably benefit from these products more. People are high stressed. They're stuck at home. They're dealing with factors they never had to deal with before. And I think it's a great time for them to experiment with either CBD or medical marijuana if they haven't before, because we're home. And I don't want to say what else do you have to do, but you're in a situation where you could really take advantage of these products. Since the pandemic happened, has it negatively impacted your business? Has it positively impacted your business? How have you guys had to react to what's going on?
It has definitely impacted our business. We are a CPG company. We've been focused both on chain retail and also our online store. But obviously heavily in chain retail. It was a big play of ours, and we worked really hard to get where we were. So come early March, we definitely had to take a pause, re-strategize, rethink, and keep chugging on. So we survived kind of the crunch. We made a big pivot into digital. We already had a very thriving and robust online presence, very strong online store. So we leaned into that. We leaned into content. We leaned into storytelling. We shifted some budgeting around. Of course, obviously, in-market experiential activations and in-store programming were not as necessary these past 2 quarters. So we reallocated a little of the budget. We adapted, and we started thinking, hey, what products can we start looking at manufacturing that would help people in this time period? And that's, one of the things I alluded to was an upcoming sleep tincture, which is going to be a part of a new broader portfolio of a functional tincture and capsule line, which will have a couple of different, healthy wellness type of functions. So that was something that kind of grew out of COVID, was how can we continue to serve the community? How can we adopt? And how can we still stay true to our roots? Another good example of an initiative that we took on for COVID was manufacturing hand sanitizer. So we, in the beginning of March, we kind of foresaw the crunch and the supply chain shortage. And that's what we started doing. We started manufacturing hand sanitizer. We partnered with a local distillery out of Miami, as well as a local bottling facility out of Miami. And now we're manufacturing an FDA approved. This is not a garage band trunk slamming hand sanitizer. We have an FDA approved hand sanitizer that we're now selling to some of our chain retail partners. We actually just shipped another pallet up to Wegmans in New York just a few days ago. So, I think when you have a really good group of really smart people who are really passionate about what they're doing, they're going to make it through any challenging situation. And that's what Veritas did. We made a couple pivots. As I said, we leaned heavily into our online ecosystem. Thankfully, we had already been working on it for years. And, we're doing pretty well through the pandemic. So we're super fortunate to be able to continue helping and serving the community. And I think that's what we're just going to continue to do, because it's what works.
I don't think anybody at the beginning of the pandemic, when we started having runs on hand sanitizer and everything else, would see a cannabis company and an alcohol company coming to the rescue. So that is an incredible story. I mean, it's funny where you see these stories of overcoming adversity come from, man. Listen, you guys have a ton of products, and actually my uncle just texted me, because I think he's watching the show, and said, I need some of that sleep tincture. Can you get me 2 bottles? So I'm going to need an email when that hits the shelves. But you guys have so many great products. I'm actually have your website up right here over to my right. I mean, things that, you've got massage oils, you've got CBD tinctures, you've got sports cream, you've got all this different stuff. I'm going to put you on the spot right now. What are some of your favorite products that Veritas sells? Because I am not as educated in CBD as I should be.
Sure. My longstanding favorite product is our 2,000 milligram tincture, unflavored, or I should say naturally flavored. But it's just a rock star of a product. Our unflavored tincture and our peppermint tincture are probably our 2 best-selling products online. And we just make a phenomenal tincture. Our oil comes right to the farm. So if you buy our tincture from our website and it ships to your house, it's literally shipping from the facility where it was manufactured 30 miles away from the farm where it was grown, all by the same company. And it's such a simple product. It's, 2 ingredients. It's our all natural hemp oil and some organic coconut oil. But it's our cannabinoid and terpene profiles are so distinct, and they're so strong, that you really feel the benefits of this product, sometimes immediately, and sometimes over the course of a little bit of use. But my favorite product is definitely our unflavored tincture. But we have some other really cool ones as well. Actually, I was hoping I had my roll-on sitting up here, but my girlfriend might have grabbed it because we fight over it. But we have these roll-on products that we just came out with, and they're like stress relief roll-ons, and they've got awesome additional ingredients for scents and a kind of a aromatherapy type of roll-on. Really, really cool product. Our salve is my most favorite for if I have any type of sprain or bruise or any physical discomfort. I just lather it on right on the spot. So we've got some really, really awesome products.
That's awesome, man. So let me ask you a selfish question, right? Because I started with the CBD with the tinctures, and it's a new habit for me, right? Going and getting a dropper and putting it under the tongue is just not something I'm used to, right? I am someone, I try to take supplements or vitamins in the morning and at night. For people that are more like me, that are just used to taking it and orally in a capsule or something like that, what kind of products do you have that people can just kind of add it to their daily routine, make it a little bit easier?
Sure.
And that's selfish for me. I don't care about everybody watching. I care about Todd.
All right. Well, we're going to find Todd the perfect product for Todd, but I would always push someone towards a tincture first. And again, the unflavored tincture, the unflavored tincture, I have to lean into it just for a second. I hope you don't mind, Todd. It has this flavor. And if you're a cannabis guy, you're going to love the unflavored tincture. So that I would push you there again, just because it has that earthy, piney, citrusy type of flavor that you would expect out of like a really quality cannabis. It's really uplifting in a way. But I totally get that taking a tincture is weird. The process of it, holding it in your mouth for 90 seconds, having that oily mouthfeel in the finish. I understand, you might not want to do that if you're feeling stressed out at the office in the middle of the day. It might look a little weird to just kind of start taking a tincture. Or on a Zoom call, because not many of us are in offices these days.
I've done that, actually.
Taking a tincture in the middle of the Zoom.
Oh yeah.
So, but we have tons of other great products that are a lot easier and simpler to take. So, capsules are a great example. Capsules are super effective. We've got a 10 milligram and a 25 milligram. And of course, they're wrapped in a plant cellulose. So it's again, all natural. We also have gummies. Now our gummies are CBD isolate. They're not full spectrum. And that's really due to, again, the science. Manufacturing with full spectrum hemp oil can be a little bit challenging. So for the sake of formulations and getting a good quality product to market, our gummies are CBD isolate, which we always advocate for full spectrum hemp oil, but we still wanted to make a quality gummy and bring it to our consumers. So our gummies, if tinctures aren't for you, the gummies are super fun. They're delicious, and they're only 5 milligrams. So you could eat about a whole bag in a sitting and not overdo it. And then, we have tons of great topicals too. So it really depends on what you're looking for and what you're trying to use it for.
Very cool, man. I like the way that you guys market your products. And I think one of the coolest ways to introduce people into the CBD world or even the medical marijuana world are some curated things, right? And I like that you guys have on your website, I'm just looking at what I wrote down here. You just have a cool starter kit that is a different mix of your different products, and people can select the flavors or scents that they want. You have a beauty kit, you have a pet care kit, which I'm super interested in. But there was one that really caught my eye, and I think it's very interesting. You guys have an ear cleansing system. Is that talk to me about the ear cleansing system, because going through everything kind of made sense to me, and then I came across and I'm like, okay, I've got to ask him about this.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of people have a lot of dirty ears, and we're trying to, no, I'm totally kidding. We have another brand called Veritas Pets, which we launched last November. And for your listeners who aren't aware, it's not just humans who have an endocannabinoid system. It's many different animals. All mammals do. Fish, different invertebrates, reptiles, canines, felines. So many different animals in the animal kingdom have an endocannabinoid system. It evolved a couple 100 million years ago in a very, very early ancestor of ours. So it isn't just humans that benefit from the plant either. Dogs, cats, they both benefit greatly from CBD and full spectrum hemp oil. So we wanted to make a line for pets as well. It had started to become a trend, and we wanted to lean into that same transparency, quality, sustainable, organic approach. And we made a pet line called Veritas Pets. It's a full line of products. We have dog tinctures, cat tinctures, tuna, bacon flavor. We have calming chews, hip and joint chews. We have a chew that supports skin and allergy issues. And then we also have some topicals. So we have a paw and nose rub or a paw and nose rescue, for if you walk your dog on the sidewalk too much or something like that. And then we have a hot spot treatment. And then, as you mentioned, we have an ear cleansing system, which it's super cool. It's got these reusable swabs that you can they're dishwasher friendly, so super sustainable. And it comes with a little oil solution. And in that oil solution, it's all organic oils that are manufactured so that they help cleanse pets' ears. You just dab a little bit on the swab, you stay around the outer and outer part of the ear. And, ear infections are, I think it was the second most, the second most popular reason that people take their pets to the vet was for ear infections and for ear cleanings. So we know there was a huge piece of the pet market for that. And it's actually been received really, really well. So that's the story behind our ear cleansing system.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that one definitely stood out to me, but the line of products that you guys have is incredible. I mean, your marketing's great. You guys go so far as to offer Spotify playlists for the fans of your social media. I saw that on Instagram today, and that was really cool. I mean, so the last thing I want to touch on, you talk about the farm out in Colorado, out in Pueblo, and everything you guys are doing there, but I don't think people realize you guys are a Fort Lauderdale-based company. So when you're operating, even though you're a CBD company, right? You're not a medical marijuana company. You are crossing state lines, and there are different regulations in different states. How does that work for you guys being a Fort Lauderdale-based company with operations in Colorado? Is it just, do we pick the highest standards and kind of manage to that? Or, talk to me about the workings of the company in that direction.
Yeah, that's been a work in progress for a few years now. And a constant learning process as well, especially as you have, we essentially have 50 different markets in the United States because there is no federal guideline. So as different states have developed, their own legislative ecosystems, we've sometimes, especially before the Farm Bill, we were monitoring state by state by state. We've had gummies go to jail. We had a couple pallets of gummies go to jail just a few months ago down, we'll call it a flyover state, where a local sheriff was feeling a little overzealous, and he impounded our gummies for a little while. So, it still happens. The Farm Bill really helped clear that up. And then there were a couple subsequent things that happened after the Farm Bill. So the Department of Agriculture came out, even the TSA came out, and they published papers that were positive towards interstate commerce and interstate transport. So once those came out, that was a big alleviation that kind of took place. But, it still is a concern. And we put a lot of resources into monitoring state by state regulations as well as federal regulations. And you have to. You just a fact of the game right now. The last thing you want to do, if that pallet of gummies was on its way to CVS, they would not have been as forgiving as the person who we were lucky enough that they happened to be on their way to. So yeah, you really need to cross your T's and dot your I's because this is still a burgeoning category, and we're still lacking that federal guidance that will really clear up all these types of challenges.
Well, I'm hoping the fact that this pandemic has put cannabis more into the spotlight by everyone being deemed essential, that it'll open the federal government's eyes and realize that they need to get more involved, not because everybody wants it to open up, because there needs to be guidelines and there needs to be protections in place, not only for consumers, but for business to be able to operate homogeneously across the country. It's what needs to happen. And So, man, you and I have been talking for the better part of an hour, and I know I wanted to get to industrial hemp, but I don't think we have the time for that. Definitely need to have you back on so you and I can go back and forth, because that is something that I'm extremely interested in. Actually, a mutual friend of ours, I was texting with him last night. And we were talking about the potential, and this is something that everyone who watches this show knows that I'm obsessed with: hemp straws, because I
Yeah.
think that is the number one solution to those pain in the ass paper straws that we're forced to deal with down here in South Florida. And, I hope that is something that we can get you back and talk about. So before I let you go, I know we talked a lot about Veritas. Where can we find you guys, and where can we find you on social media, website, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So our website is www.theveritasfarms.com, Veritas Farms. You can catch us on Instagram, on Facebook. We're Veritas Farms Official, and we're also available in CVS. We're available in Winn-Dixie. We're available in Bed Bath & Beyond, and even some Publixes in South Florida.
Very cool. Publix, man. That's near and dear to the heart down here in Florida.
Yeah,
So
it is. Yeah.
awesome. Derek, thank you
Awesome.
so much for joining. Really appreciated the conversation. And I'm going to plug one more thing for you guys. If you haven't seen Derek's TED Talk, definitely go find it. It's on YouTube. I highly recommend it. And I'm going to have him back on, and we're going to dig deeper into that talk about industrial hemp and so much more. So appreciate it, man. Thank you again for joining. And thank you, everybody at home. This has been another episode of Elevate Your Grind. I'm done for the week. I don't have to do any more shows. Join us Monday right here, facebook.com/Cannabis Group. We've got Roz McCarthy from Minorities for Medical Marijuana. It's going to be an awesome show. And we've got another full week for you next week. It's been another episode of Elevate Your Grind, folks. We're out.